Hello and welcome to Northeast Tonight. I am WASBIR Hussain. Bangladesh appears to have been sucked into the whirlpool of international big power politics and looks like the nation has become a pawn in the global power play. The country's ad hoc leader Mohammad Yunus has decided to cozy up to China over India, forcing New Delhi to withdraw transshipment facilities for exports from Bangladesh. Dhaka has also drawn the ire of the United States over the attack on minority Hindus, with Washington likely to look at Bangladesh through India's security lens. Of course, the United States sees Bangladesh as a counterweight to China's Belt and Road Initiative. And what does the docking of the Russian ships at the Chittagong port a few days ago mean? Well, Russia's involvement may be limited, but Moscow is certainly eyeing Bangladesh's energy sector and looks to sell armaments and military hardware to the unstable and highly populous South Asian nation. Observers in the Northeast that shares a nearly 2,000-kilometer long border with Bangladesh are closely watching the situation and are angry with Mohammad Yunus's open invitation to China to come and expand its economy in Bangladesh territory along East and Northeast India. The level of the anger can be gauged by the hard-hitting statement of people like the Tripura royal scion Pradyut Dev who has said if the government of India allows, he would mobilize the tribal people in Bangladesh's Chittagong hill tracts to shift allegiance and join India, a country he said they have been keen on joining since 1947. To discuss the situation, I am joined from New Delhi by Dr. Sriradha Datta, Professor of International Politics at the Jindal Global University and a leading Bangladesh watcher. In Kolkata, I have Mr. Subir Bhaumik, well-known author and commentator. I am joined from Shillong by Pradyut Dev himself, the Tripura royal scion. And in Guwahati, I have Mr. Bhaskar Jyoti Mahanta, former Director General of Police Assam and a strategic analyst. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Northeast Tonight. Let me first come to you, Dr. Sriradha Datta. How are you watching the situation? Mohammad Yunus cozying up to China over India, and US officials landing up in China, Russian ships docking in the Chittagong port. So it appears that Bangladesh has suddenly become sucked into the whirlpool of big power global politics.
Well, ever since the international community had moved its interest to Indo-Pacific and necessarily Bay of Bengal, which is situated there, Bangladesh was becoming an important player. But because India and Bangladesh was engaging so much more, we were not really concerned with the other outreach that Bangladesh was doing. Bangladesh and China's engagement has been through decades. It's nothing new. And we've seen Sheikh Hasina very robustly engage with China. Several of her very well-known established infrastructure projects, including Padma Bridge and many other other infrastructure projects were done by them. Also during Khalida Zia's time. It is only now that we see a little bit of different lens through which we are examining this. It's also quite a well-known fact that Bangladesh and Professor Yunus certainly was requesting for India's meeting attention with our Prime Minister, which wasn't the case. And we've seen in the sidelines of BIMSTEC that the two leaders met, but it was a barely 20 minutes meeting, so we do know, what the outcome would possibly be. Certainly, there is no thaw in the relationship. But Professor Yunus usually used to go to China on this particular, conference forum for the last several years. So I don't think it's very untoward. I think it's a kind of a part of the course where Bangladesh and China is concerned.
Right. I will take a response on that from Mr. Pradyut Dev, but let me go to Mr. Subir Bhaumik. Mr. Subir Bhaumik, Dr. Sriradha Datta does not seem to attach too much importance to Mohammad Yunus's visit to China and extending an open invitation to the Chinese to come and open shop along the northeastern region of India, along the Siliguri corridor. And we also cannot miss the fact that Bangladesh has invited the Chinese to set up an air base at Lal Monir Hat, which is barely 150 to 160 kilometers from the strategic chicken snake or the Siliguri corridor.
WASBIR, I'd like to correct you. that the Chinese have not been invited to set up an air base. They are going to construct the air base for the Bangladesh Air Force, right?
Yes,
So,
but let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you. Yes, you are right. I take your point. The Chinese will be constructing the airbase, but that will involve positioning, stationing of several of the Chinese technicians and PLA people at that base in Lalmonirhat. Yes, continue, Mr. Subir Bhumi.
that's true. That's true. Now, I agree with Srinath that Bangladesh's engagement with China has been old. It's nothing new. But it's also true that Sheikh Hasina, who engaged with China robustly, did not say, "I'm the emperor of the ocean," and, did not try to make the kind of points that Mohammad Yunus has made. What is interesting about Mohammad Yunus is he's trying to, he is in power because of the Americans, the regime change operation that was initiated by the American deep state. There's nothing, spontaneous about the movement that brought Sheikh Hasina down. Yunus himself has said this during his visit to America, that this was a meticulously designed operation. Point is, Mohammad Yunus is playing the game which the Pakistanis have played very well. They managed both China and America, in both their hands. And he's now trying to play that game. You see, the Americans are here. They're going to set up a base, a transport a logistics base at Silkali in near Cox's Bazar, because they're going to supply. They have got the Bangladeshis to agree to a supply zone connecting to Myanmar. Now, let me make one thing very clear. Bangladesh is getting all this importance not for its own sake, but because of the civil war in Myanmar, where there is a proxy war developing between the Americans on the West on one hand and the Chinese on the other. For the Chinese, Bangladesh is not geopolitically or geostrategically so important as Myanmar, because Myanmar gives them, like Pakistan, a land to sea access, to the Bay of Bengal, as Pakistan, through Pakistan, they get it to the Arabian Ocean and thus to the Indian Ocean. Because China's big problem is the Malacca choke point. They're a big power economically, militarily, but they're small coast, focused on East Asia. So they want land to sea access into the Indian Ocean. Myanmar is very important. And because of the civil war situation there, and the Chinese totally backing the Myanmar junta, whereas the Americans and the Western powers backing some of the rebel groups like the Chins, the Rakhines, and therefore Bangladesh becomes very important, because India is not going to allow, we maintain our strategic autonomy. We're not going to allow, we have a problem with China, we'll deal with it, but we don't want to, get into a problem with China because the Americans want it. We're very clear about that.
Right.
We're not going
I'll
to
come
allow
back to you.
our northeastern, no, let me finish this. Northeastern borders to be allowed. We don't want to get dragged into the Myanmar civil war. Bangladesh, to appease the Americans, especially with a man like Trump in power, they are already in the process of setting up in Silkali a logistics base to supply the rebels in Myanmar. They've already agreed to it. It's not just a humanitarian supply, it also involves military things. On the other hand, Yunus visited China, and he, is welcoming Chinese investments. He's trying to get the Chinese here in Bangladesh in a very, very big way. Now, this is something.
We will analyze it. Mr. Subir Bhomik, this is just, let me have the opening remarks from everybody and continue this debate. Let me, I am deliberately keeping the response from Mr. Pradyut Dev Burman at the last, because let him hear, he has already heard these two commentators. Let me go to Mr. Bhaskar Jyoti Mahanta, former Director General of the Assam Police and now working, he is a strategic analyst at this point in time. Mr. Bhaskar Jyoti Mahanta, we have Dr. You joined a few minutes late. Dr. Sriradha Datta, a very keen Bangladesh watcher and a professor at the Jindal Global University, he said nothing much should be read into Yunus's overtures to China, inviting the Chinese, because he says that Bangladesh has maintained a relationship with the Chinese, not now but from a long time. But my question is, this kind of a statement Bangladesh has not made, and here is an unelected leader who has not tasted victory, who does not have the mandate of the people. He is an ad hoc leader of Bangladesh going to China. We don't know at whose behest, at his own behest or whether at the behest of the Pakistanis. Has gone to China, invited the Chinese to come and open shop along the northeastern frontier, along the Siliguri corridor, which is the most vulnerable military artery of India. What is your take on this?
That was the final hit on the nail, actually. Ever since this man has come into the power, despite not being elected, uh, Bangladesh has been a chaotic hotspot of different kinds of players, different kinds of narratives, different kinds of events, and but then, despite whatever had happened out there, they didn't come up with a statement like we are the guardian of the
Seas.
sea.
Yes.
Meaning thereby that we can rule the roost and keeping India at the bay and leveraging Northeast India's position, referring to obviously the chicken neck, which is a security red herring for India, especially with respect to Northeast India. And we got to take stock of it, come what may. But this is not the only kind of dangerous signal from Yunus. The kind of attempt to redefine history, going back to Pakistan days. Now, the way they are proceeding, redefining the historical legacy of totally doing away with Sheikh Mujibur or pre-liberation, the liberation war itself, and allowance to these fundamentalist characters, right from the Ansarul Bangla team, talk about JMBs, talk about Huzi P, and Zamati characters taking over the advisory panel in such a big way. India got to be kind of alerted about things that are happening, but then it's not that we are very worried, sick, and stuff like that. We're going to take cover and India has given a great amount of concession to this East Pakistan at the time of the independence itself, and later 71 war itself. Chittagong Hills Tract is pretty much inhabited by the people of northeastern stock, the Mongoloid stock.
Right.
And anyway, certain hints could be dropped, but this one, whatever India has just talked in terms of stopping the transshipment facility, this is just a narrative build-up. It's nothing. It's not a punitive measure or anything of that kind. But we got to be perhaps helping this kind of a nation in distress to be getting out of their total chaos with all kinds of players coming in and piling on.
Okay.
And help them to get around some amount of sanity out there. If we could help, perhaps it'll be a good thing.
All right. Let me now turn to Mr. Pradut Debbarma, the Tripura Royal Sign. Mr. Pradut Debbarma, you have been giving a number of statements, in the last couple of weeks, including last was your interaction with me on this channel only yesterday, where you said that if the government of India permits you, if the government of India gives you the go-ahead, you can mobilize the tribal people in the Chittagong Hill Tracts, because you are saying that the tribal people are dying to fly the tricolor in the Chittagong Hill Tracts. Now you have heard commentators like Dr. Srirada Datta, who has said that nothing much needs to be read into Yunus's comments and his visit to China. Is it as simple as that, or how do you look at it?
Well, I have a lot of regards for Mrs. Datta, and I also know Subir Bhaumik very well. He's from Tripura. We have to get into the historical perspective first.
Okay. We have. I can't hear you. There is a slight network problem. We'll fix that. Mr. Pradut Debbarma will reconnect that. Let me request my producers to reconnect that line to Pradut Debbarma. Let me go to Dr. Srirada Datta. Dr. Srirada Datta, I took note of your comment on this China. You don't seem to attach too much of importance to that. But Bangladesh has hosted, the moment Yunus came to power, he invited the Pakistani military to come and train the Bangladeshi soldiers. Bangladesh hosted the Pakistani army officials at Rangpur, which is close to the Siliguri corridor. Bangladesh announced resumption of direct flights to Pakistan, so on and so forth. This is not the only thing that Bangladesh has done. Now, in response to India's decision to stop the transshipment facility, Bangladesh has decided to stop import of yarn from India through its land border. Now, Bangladesh seems to be adopting a hostile attitude and in a no, I don't care less kind of an attitude. Now, my question to you is not that. My question is, do you think Dhaka under Muhammad Yunus is capable of withstanding global pulls and pressures because he is not an elected government?
It's not elected government, yes, it's an interim government, and it's kind of an offshoot of the caretaker government which was done away with by the former prime minister. So that's the bit. I There has been a lot of, as I said, it's just not now. Even earlier during Sheikh Hasina's time, you recall that Bangladesh had done an Indo-Pacific outlook under Sheikh Hasina. Because of the US pressure, as Chinese engagement has been there. The Rupur power plant has been Russia's engagement. We've also seen the chief of army or somebody there actually visit Moscow recently. So there is really a lot more outreach that is happening. But I'm just think again, coming back to this China bit, I think it's unnecessarily overreading of few things. In fact, a week before he went to China, and he went to China on a conference that he's been going for the last 5 years,
So,
as far as I recall. He had talked about the sub-regional cooperation in another event in Bangladesh, where he talked about both Nepal, Bhutan, India working together. I just think this particular, and I while he's of course a Nobel laureate, economist by excellence and all of that, I think the strategic ideas seem to be a bit incongruous. And that's how I see it. And I know that this is going to be a kind of a short government, right? We all know that Bangladesh chief of army has said that thrice in the last few weeks that Bangladesh is going to hold elections by the end of the year, if not by June. Latest. So clearly this is an interim government, and I think there's limitation to the government. And yes, Professor Yunus is giving this large worldview as to how Bangladesh will move forward with Bangladesh, US, China, everything. But let's not forget that they are, India and Bangladesh are tied at a certain level, which you can't break away despite the present cold relation that we have.
Right. Let me. I'll go to you, Mr. Subir Bhaumik, but I am told that Mr. Pradut Debbarman is back with me. Pradut, yes, please continue. You're making a point.
Yeah. First of all, Subir Da has written very extensively. Let's go into the historical perspective. There was a clear attempt before the Tripura's merger with Bangladesh, East Pakistan, with India, East Pakistan. There was a clear effort to merge Tripura with present-day Bangladesh. They've always had an eye towards the larger part of Northeast. Now, there are various commentators who say that there's nothing which has changed in Bangladesh. Bangladesh remains the same. But no, there has been a lot of change in Bangladesh. I have, for the matter of fact, I have a lot of people in Bangladesh who are in touch with us who tell you that there is a sea of change towards attitude towards India. We always mistake the friendship between Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and India as friendship between the whole of Bangladesh and India. There were camps which were insurgent camps, which were based out of Bangladesh, which created enough havoc in the 90s and the early 2000s. And that time, there was no Sheikh Hasina's government. Bangladesh has always had a flip-flop policy when it comes to India. Our relationships have improved under Sheikh Hasina. She's no longer there in charge. There is an outbreak of fundamentalist movement in parts of Bangladesh, and what Muhammad Yunus said in China in reference to Northeast being landlocked was to economically deprive Northeast, since we are only connected to India through a chicken's neck. Now, we may take this statement very lightly, but the intention was fueled by his advisors, by a section of Jamaat-e Islami, which don't look at India as his friend. In this given time and moment, I think India also needs to look at Bangladesh not only from a strategic point of view, but also from Northeast's economic point of view. And if Bangladesh keeps on provoking India and keeps on inviting countries like China, I know that Sheikh Hasina was talking to China. Khalida Zia was talking to China. When Ershad was there, they were talking to China. But to actually say this in China itself is something that we don't take very kindly to.
Right.
And if Northeast has to prosper, we need to have an access towards the seas ourselves. We are only 45 kilometers away from Sabrum via the Feni River. And if Bangladesh's attitude is to choke us by making us landlocked, said by Muhammad Yunus himself, we also need to look at our plan B and to have a firm foreign policy based on historical factors is also something very important. China will never pick up a fight with India. America will never pick up a fight with India over Bangladesh. But Bangladesh is depending on China, Pakistan, America to actually isolate northeast of India. As a northeasterner,
yeah.
as someone who's staying there, we need to also have a stronger point of view.
Right.
We have seen large-scale infiltration coming in. We have seen scores and scores of illegal migrants coming into parts of northeast and then going upwards to North India or parts of Maharashtra. So, what is India planning to do? You've seen
yes,
what happened in Sylhet.
Right.
When they've ransacked.
I'll come back to you. You made that point on Sylhet, how the library and others were ransacked. We will come back to that.
And then you want friendly relationship with America.
Absolutely. Now, let me quickly, before I go for a break, let me quickly go to Mr. Subir Bhomik. Mr. Subir Bhomik, now the point is, as Mr. Pradyut Debbarman said, it was not that we had the Awami League in power in Bangladesh ever since independence. That's not the case. The BNP was also there, but BNP also had relations, but BNP never went to China, or for that matter asked the Chinese to come and open shop everywhere and ask the Pakistanis to come and train the Bangladesh military. Because do you think Yunus government's proximity to the Pakistani army, do you think it will go down well with the Bangladeshi ordinary masses? Have they forgotten about the atrocities, the genocide that the Pakistani army carried on the Bangladeshi women and children?
Well, let's clarify certain things. I think in this discussion, too many things are getting messed up. Yunus does not need to tell the Chinese that Bangladesh is important to access the Northeast, as an extension of Chinese economy. Chinese products are entering Northeast through Myanmar. You go to the Imphal markets and you'll see what I'm talking about. I've done stories myself. So the Chinese know their geostrategic and geophysical realities much better than Professor Yunus actually. I agree with Sridhar that Yunus has been talking of this regional cooperation. He actually made this point when he came to the Bodoland University. He is a great advocate of this regional cooperation and all that. But the way he put it, actually created some problems. And that's because he's not himself very clear about, especially the geography. He got his geography pretty much wrong, because China does not need Bangladesh to access the Northeast. It's the other way around. To reach Bangladesh, the Chinese would either need Northeast or they will need Myanmar. They can't directly access by land. So that's number one. Number two, very important thing is that Yunus, if he has his way, we'll never have elections. Because the day there are elections, Yunus is gone. Yunus does not have a political party. Yunus does not have a political base, and his Grameen Bank, the clientele is not going to ensure him any kind of political mileage by which he can be in a. So Yunus will try to do a deal with any of the major political parties that he can, BNP perhaps, if he has his way, but the BNP is pretty unhappy with him at the moment, that he is made president, because Yunus is very, very much interested in power. He's not somebody, who is sort of there to do good for Bangladesh and go away. Look at why he got into a problem with the Grameen Bank. After 65, he continued to stay on as the boss of Grameen Bank when he was already 71, and when he was removed, there was a huge problem. He created a problem. So Yunus is not going to leave anything. And now that he is the chief advisor of interim government, he would like to be president at the very least. If I have read Yunus correctly, he is politically ambitious, without, the abilities to be a direct politician in Bangladesh. So he's playing other game. He's saying, oh, we need to do reforms, so I need to be here. Sometimes he's saying, oh, Hasina has to be tried first. His chelas are saying that. All these student leaders who are his bunnies. They're saying, oh, first Hasina has to be tried.
Yeah.
So many things have to be done before there are elections in Bangladesh. And this is why BNP is getting upset. Forget about Awami League, it's out of the equation now. The most important thing here from the Indian point of view, I would imagine, is to ensure, and Maharaj raised, and I would call him Maharaj, in deference to, my presence in Tripura, he's our Maharaj, whatever the history is. So Maharaj is actually indirectly pointed to something very important. Our northeast access to sea is through Bangladesh. Now we have several agreements done during the time of Sheikh Hasina. The coastal shipping agreement, the transit agreement, and all these agreements have been done so that we can access northeast through Bangladesh. Whether this government and any other government that follows this government, elected or otherwise, are going to honor those agreements, because if we cancel one agreement and they cancel another agreement and this escalates, there is a real danger that Bangladesh will not honor, or at least create problems in implementing some
Right.
of these
Let me-
agreements, which is very important for Northeast, the coastal shipping agreement as well as the transit agreement.
Right.
Which brings us, and
We will.
now that we have a problem, we cannot access Northeast through the Kaladan multimodal transit project, which goes through Myanmar, which is the second alternative accessing to Northeast from the Indian mainland point of view, because of the civil war going on there, the fight between the Rakhine, the Chins, and the Burmese military. Bangladesh is doubly important for us, for the mainland to access the Northeast, avoiding the chicken neck. Like
Absolutely,
the Chinese have a
absolutely,
Malacca choke
absolutely,
point,
Subir
we have a
Bhumik.
chicken
I
neck
will.
vulnerability.
Right.
So we have to ensure that these
I'll have to
agreements
go.
are honored.
I'll have to go for a very short commercial break. When I come back, I'll go to Mr. Bhaskar Ziti Mahanta and to all other our panelists. Don't go away. I'll be right back. Welcome back, Mr. Bhaskar Ziti Mahanta. Basically what we have been discussing is that the role of Bangladesh as far as the Northeast is concerned. Can we have everybody on the screen? The role of Bangladesh as far as Northeast region is concerned. Now, India is adopting an extremely cautious approach. There are a lot of people who are saying that tough action has to be taken. A lot of people are saying that Chittagong Hill Tracts, there has to be an unrest in Chittagong Hill Tracts should be taken over, so on and so forth. So there is a lot of jingoistic feeling, which is natural. In this kind of a situation, it is not surprising. I think no one is surprised that there is anger in the northeastern region. But what should be India's approach? That is what a lot of people would like to know.
Well, WASBIR, you were talking about a kind of statement Yunus has made in China, and it being mentioned as not being so important. In that context, I would like to say the kind of anti-India position Yunus has been taking, the multidimensional India bashing. After Yunus has joined, you see the kind of activities being undertaken in addition to building up the airfield at Lal Monerhat. And a group of Bangladeshi Air Force personnel having been sent to Pakistan to train in JF-17 fighter jets. These fighter jets were developed by Chinese and Pakistanis together. And they are training their pilots to be operating them, and they are training already in Pakistan. Today, the Foreign Secretary of Pakistan has had his confabulation with Jasimuddin, the advisor external affairs in Dhaka, And a couple of
He's
days
foreign
later,
secretary.
the
Naseemuddin is foreign
External
secretary.
Affairs Minister Isaac Dar
Biden is
is going to come there, renewing a friendship of a very interesting kind after 15 years, and thereby, forgetting all the kind of history that has been inked. And this cannot be done without any kind of thought process of anti-Indian strict
No, Mike,
butchering
that brings me to
at
a
the
very
behest of UNAS.
Bhaskar.
All right, but then as per entire lot of DZFI, honchos, entire lot of Zamat and anti-Indian forces that
No,
are now being
no,
very active out here.
absolutely.
So India needs to be trading very carefully, and ISI is at it. You can be very sure about it. And they are going with a begging bowl now to Turkey for drones and stuff like that. Militarily, they are definitely
No.
tying up in strong.
No, my question is
bondage with-
that brings me to two questions.
So
I've
we
got
got to
two-
be careful, but at the
Right.
same time, Wasbir, yes, what I am trying to say, perhaps BNP is no more the BNP of the yore, when they used to help the Indian insurgent groups to, take roots out there in Bangladesh shores and attack India. Gone are those days. BNP appears to be a little more mature, and they have their own differences with Jamaat. They have their own differences with even the student groups. Nahid Islam yesterday had an interview saying that BNP is being favored unnecessarily by the advisory government, etc. So they are at loggerheads.
Right.
And BNP wants election quick. And I guess let democracy prevail. If India pushes for a proper democratic process where the secular parties have their say, and perhaps India stands to gain. Jingoism, in terms of getting prepared for the worst, needs to remain all right, but then we need to, as a very responsible neighbor, a very senior big brother, we need to push their case as well in proper perspective.
Now, one more thing. Let me go to Dr. Srirada Datta. Dr. Srirada Datta, now, you see, Bangladesh. Now, Bangladesh is, the Russians are thinking of selling weapons to Bangladesh. Bangladesh has got 2 old submarines from the Chinese, but that has enabled the Chinese to at least park themselves in Bangladeshi territory. Now, as Bhaskar Chutimanta said, they were trying to acquire drones. Do you think that the Bangladeshis are, shoring up its military? Do you think they will be able to they will be sandwiched by 2 big South Asian nations, the 2 big South Asian giants? Do you think, they have the wherewithal to sustain this kind of a military, armament building? So, what is going on actually?
They're crying for attention. I think that's the way I see it. But more importantly, I still maintain that this government is there for a very limited period. We will have to examine our relationship with the elected government.
Yeah.
Now, let's face the
Yeah.
fact that India is not a popular entity there. The way we've behaved in the last 15 years hasn't endeared us to the population. And I mean the youth especially. The youth, 40% of Bangladesh's population is between the age group of 16 to 35. Clearly, that's not a population that is in favor of India for a variety of reasons, and much of it is that India's, issue really. So at this point of time, I think we'll have to, remain calm. As they say, keep our the gunpowder dry. At the same time, I would actually think that India of 2001 is a different India today. I mean, we can't constantly keep thinking, oh, Northeast has to be looked after by somebody else. Northeast is ours, and we'll have to take care of it. We will have to get into a situation where it's quite possible the neighborhood is not in our favor, and we've seen that. So, constantly thinking
yes,
of how
Pradut,
others are going to, but at the same
right.
time, the way we behaved with this unionist government, again, hasn't really made things any easy for any one of us.
Right.
I
Let me,
think I've done it differently.
so Radha, sorry to interrupt you. I'll come back to you. Pradut, you wanted to say something, but I have a question for you, Pradut, and same question goes to Mr. Subir Bhomik as well. During this Advantage Assam Summit, Pradut, the External Affairs Minister led a huge delegation of foreign diplomats. There were huge, the entire top brass of the India Inc. Landed in Guwahati. 5 lakh crores worth of MOUs were signed. Even if 20 to 30% of those MOUs get implemented on the ground, the Northeast, or for that matter Assam, is going to see a tremendous change. But my question is, is India Is it possible for India to look at a new neighborhood outside of Myanmar and Bangladesh, because most of the South Asian capitals are Southeast Asian countries are within 3 hours flying distance from Guwahati?
Wasbir, that's a very good question. But can I come back to what the lady, the distinguished lady who just spoke before me?
Dr.
It
Srirala
is true
Datta.
that, yes, ma'am, I have a lot of, she's spoken very eloquently, but let me say something. The youth of Bangladesh is definitely not with India. Are they also against America for having them, for them vandalizing American stores? The fact is that were the youths of Bangladesh with India, she said in the last 15 years, what was happening in the 90s? What was happening in the 80s? The fact is that the youth of Bangladesh have been radicalized. They've been radicalized. The youth of Bangladesh, do you think that the Pakistani army came in Kumilla, in Brahmanbari, in Noakhali and massacred the Hindu Bengalis? Did the Pakistani army come in 1974 and massacre the Chakmas? Or did the Pakistani army come and it was nothing to do with Bangladesh when they massacred the Tripuris, the Christians, the monks, the Buddhists, the Hindus? The fact is there has been an underground of radicalization. If they were angry with India, why would they go and bring down the statue of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman? Why have they gone and killed tons and tons of people from the Awami League? The fact is that this is a clear radicalization of the youth of Bangladesh, and that has happened, and their natural enemy will always be India because it is largely Hindu dominated. Let me be very honest, their natural enemy will be Israel. Now, if you see what they are speaking against Israel because of what is happening in Gaza, their natural enemy will always be America. So the fact is that radicalization in Bangladesh is the reason why they are no longer in favor of India or in favor of Myanmar. You know what is happening with the Arakan army. So we have to really understand that the problem is not with India's attitude towards Bangladesh. It is that radicalization in Bangladesh has gone to such an extent where they are killing their own citizens on the basis of religion. They are targeting people on the lines of their affinity, and this will not change until we do not talk to them from a position of power. The people in Chittagong Hill Tracts, Bandarban, Khagrachari, Noakhali, Kumilla, they are all part of, Shubir Bhomik will say it, they were all part of old Tripura. There are sentiments there in Chittagong Hill Tracts, in Cox's Bazar. The tricolor was flying there for 72 hours. Even there, the people there are actually more Indian than we actually think that they are. And engaging with Bangladesh at this present time, where the maximum of the youth are against us, will help us in no way. They need to be also told that please come online or we will take actions which will be equal to your hatred towards us. This is what has happened in Maldives. This is what's happening in Bangladesh. And this will continue in the name of big brother attitude, but there is nothing which has happened from India's side in the last 5 years or 10 years. And insurgency which rose in the 90s and the 80s, was India unjust towards Bangladesh then? Absolutely not. And for them to invite Pakistan to set up bases in Bangladesh to attack India, who has been more unfair to the youth of Bangladesh, Pakistan or India? So it is nothing to do with India's attitude towards Bangladesh. It has got to do with the rising fundamentalism in that country itself.
Let me turn to Subir Bhomik. Mr. Subir Bhomik, Mr. Pradut Debbarman is talking about the war. He's worried about the increased radicalization in Bangladesh. Now, my question to you is, can you come forward a bit, please? Can you come forward? We are missing you from the screen. Yes. 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 Mr. You can, if you can hear me, can you hear me first of all, Subir Bhomik?
Yes, I can hear you now.
My question is, Mr. Pradut Debbarman is talking about radicalization in Bangladesh. My question to you is, a country where hooligans and mob can go and vandalize and bring down the statue of their own father of the nation, what can we expect of that country? What has happened? How many of those people have been arrested? Or was it the general mood in the country that the father of the nation means nothing to them? We can't think of something like that in India.
No, let's get a couple of things clear. This whole agitation that brought down Sheikh Hasina Sheikh Hasina was not exactly becoming very popular because of the fraudulent elections that have happened. The democracy and democratic rights was definitely an issue, and a lot of students were upset with that. But a lot of those students who went into the movement were from the madrasas. A
No,
lot of these so-called student leaders are Hizbut Tahrir people. I know each of their background in details. So it will be wrong to think that this was a very spontaneous student movement. And Yunus himself has said that this was meticulously designed. And who meticulously designed it? The American deep state. I know of how, the American sort of senior diplomats were involved in some training some of these people, where videos of Euromaidan Ukraine operations were shown. So if I go into all those details, your program will be over. But let me tell something very clearly, two quick observations. This was not a very spontaneous student movement. There were issues which were upsetting a lot of people, the Gen Next particularly, but this was not something that was just happening spontaneously. There were a lot of elements, other elements into it. A lot of meticulous planning, according to Yunus, went into it, and he's right. The point here is, about this Chittagong hill tracks. Maharaj is right. Indian flag flew for 3 days in 1947. But that Chittagong hill tracks and today's Chittagong hill tracks is different. General Zia and General Ershad very consciously started the resettlement of plainlanders in the Chittagong hill tracks. It was an organized counter-insurgency strategy, like the Chinese have done in Tibet. And therefore, today, almost 50%, if not more, the population of Chittagong hill tracts is no longer tribal. It's no longer a tribal majority area. The tribals still very strongly feel for India. They think, like some of the tribes people in Myanmar, that India would be a better place. But honestly speaking, today, the situation that was there in 1975 when the Shanti Bahini movement started, the JSS went underground and started fighting. That situation does not exist today. A, because the demography has changed in Chittagong hill tracts. B, because the tribal leadership is extremely divided. The JSS has been split into three wings. Santu Larma is not the be-all and end-all in tribal politics there. There are other people like JSS Reformation were taken over. The UPDF, led by Prashit Kisha, is opposed to Santu Larma. So the tribals are very much divided there. We have a Maharaj there like our Maharaj in Tripura, but Raja Devashish Roy. But he does not count politically. He is a barrister. I know him personally very well. So the ground situation, let's not, plan in the air. I know the situation in Chittagong hill tracts. I've gone in to Chittagong hill tracts with the Shanti Bahini up till number of times.
Can you? But the point is, Pradut Debbarman, can we ignore the sentiments of those people, the old guards, and those people who think that they should have done better with India?
See, first of all, with all due respect to Shubirda, there were only 9% of Russians in Donetsk area, and yet Russia, saying that the Russians were being ill-treated, marched into Ukraine. Today, India is not the India of 1971. India is not the India of 1947. Today, there are enough sympathizers, and let's not only talk about tribals. There are Hindu Bengalis. The America is taking a lot of interest. There are Christians who have been targeted in Bangladesh. There are Buddhists who have been targeted in Bangladesh. There are, of course, Hindus who have been targeted in Bangladesh. And they all have, and let's not forget, Bangladesh is the third largest Hindu populated country in the world after India and Nepal. So it is not very easy to say that only a few lakhs here and there. You don't need much to create an unrest. And the government of India also needs to understand that till the time you said about Hemanta Biswa Sarma doing a summit for Northeast Conclave, Northeast will economically prosper if we have a direct access to the sea. And if Northeast has to prosper with a direct access to a sea, we need to either have a friendly country which has an understanding with India, which is in sync with India, or we will have to think of a plan B.
Absolutely, plan B.
And
now,
I'm saying so, a lot of people are hesitant because we don't want to sound unpopular in the neighborhood. Well, your neighborhood is anyway you're not going to win a popularity contest. China is not the most popular country in the in the Asian subcontinent. Yet they come from a position of strength. India, if it aspires, if it talks about a 56-inch ka Sina, needs to show certain amount of assertiveness, and we will have enough backing in Bangladesh. I can say so. The leadership is divided because we have not helped them. If we help them, the leadership will unite. The fact is that India has actually not, for various reasons, not helped the leadership there, and that's why they're divided.
Okay.
You can always unite them if
we
India
will,
makes up their mind.
I will ask a different question to Dr. Srirada Datta, but let me go to first Mr. Bhaskar Jyoti Mahanta. What do you think, because Mr. Pradyut Dev Burman says that India has to talk from a position of strength, and Northeast cannot prosper without an access to the sea, and therefore it is very, very pertinent for India to think of a plan B in view of the changing geopolitics in the region.
India has so far, behaved a little too responsibly, perhaps. I would have liked it if it was a little more aggressive. Frankly speaking, given the kind of anti-India charade that is being let loose by Yunus and his cronies. So, this gesture of trade war is not going to help, and they are going to go to other countries for yarn export or whatever. Yarn import. But then, till we can achieve of a dream the kind Mr. Pradyut has been advocating, that's a dream, which is it's good to say that dream perhaps. But until that happens, I guess India is the gatekeeper of the Malacca Strait. Mr. Subir Bhomik had mentioned about Malacca Strait. That Malacca Strait cannot be avoided by any of the Chinese cargo, Chinese energy products, if it has to go to the larger ocean, including South China Sea, to do its tango. So India is practically the gatekeeper there. We must, assert ourselves on the water. The Blue Army needs to be reasserting itself and modernizing the Indian Navy to an extent that people are scared. It's not that in the continent, perhaps, we have a little bit of defense. We are a little bit of defensive vis-a-vis Chinese. But then, because Bangladesh is hardly a power to be kind of reckoned with by India, so we don't need to really bother so much about Bangladesh per se. But when they join with the Chinese, then we need to be really
let me ask Dr. Srirada Datta. We have seen what happened to Sri Lanka. My question is, do you think over reliance on Chinese capital could result in long-term, debt dependency, and deeper military ties may complicate Bangladesh's neutral position, so-called neutral position? Do you think Bangladesh is actually in a catch-22 situation? They're trying to, get into this whole thing of global geopolitics, global big power play, but, with an unelected government, you may damage the situation, make the situation absolutely irreparable for an elected government to come and take forward.
I wouldn't take it so far. Yes, there are a lot of changes happening on the ground as we can all see it, but I wouldn't think it would come to a situation where an elected government is unable to roll it back. On the Chinese front, so far as we understand it, over 70% of Bangladesh's military hardware has been from China for the last several years. It's not new. In terms of the projects, unlike Sri Lanka or the Maldives, Bangladesh's debt ratio vis-a-vis China has been very manageable. Even when the forex was really, spiraling down, the debt problem with China wasn't so much. The terms of condition, their loan issues have been very different. So till last year, they had played it quite, I would say, prudently. Now, what is going to happen in this last few months? I haven't seen any particular project come through really. So I don't think, and also I don't think any of these, discussions that is taking place between interim and the rest of the world will actually finalize, because everybody knows what is the, legitimacy of the interim government. So clearly they will wait. These are all outreach that is taking place. And again, I would say, irrespective of the, that I think things will fall into place with an elected government. Yes, Bangladesh is not going to be the same partner that we had during Sheikh Hasina's time. We'll have to find different ways of managing that relationship. But again, it's a work in progress always in the South Asian neighborhood.
Absolutely.
This is not going to be anything different.
Absolutely. A lot of optimism there. I'll go for a short break. I don't have very much time. When I come back, I'll go for the final comments from my esteemed panelists tonight. Don't go away. I'll be right back. Final comments from you, Mr. Subir Bhomik. Are you optimistic things will be better? Do you think we need to exercise a lot of caution? What do you think?
So we need to exercise a lot of caution, but we should not draw ourselves into a shell. I don't believe in sort of talking aggression, but there has to be a certain level of push, and we need to make it clear. Bangladesh depends for a lot of things on India. It's not a very wise idea to stop giving medical visas to Bangladeshis because they depend on us. The dependent syndrome, if you need to continue in our own interest, we need to be much more practical. A. B, as far as the naval situation is concerned, of course, China has this Malacca choke point problem, and we have been building a naval base in Indonesia precisely for that reason, Sabang. But yesterday, what the US Defense Secretary said, that China's hypersonic missiles can sink the entire American fleet in 20 minutes. So let's take,
that is worrisome. That is worrisome.
With 56-inch chest and all that nonsense, my education is primarily military education. Okay, and I believe in getting into a war only if I have reasonable chance of winning it. Remember what Sam Manekshaw said in 1971: "I'm going to fight to win."
Subir, we'll play the war games at our next debate. Final comments from you, Bhaskar Jyoti Mahanta.
Well, we got to be kind of watching it properly the way we are doing. But then, as mentioned, we should be also flexing our muscles where necessary. And they must get a vibe. They can't just get away with all kinds of military preparations right next door to India. And we must say that we don't like it. And kind of build-up that is being undertaken at Hasimura is a good step towards these directions. We are showing that, here we are. And similarly, Malacca Strait is not merely about war. It's about, facilitating entry of the entire cargo ships of the Chinese vessels and stuff like that. India can play a massive role out there.
Okay, Mr. Bhaskar Jyoti Mahanta, we are already flexing our muscles. We have the Rafale jets, we have the BrahMos missiles, we have whatnot in the Siliguri corridor. Srirada Datta, final comments.
We are 12 squadrons down in our Air Force, Sanctions stand 42, we only have 30. Let's be practical.
Srirada Datta.
I would think that, I completely agree that we have been flexing our muscles. We have been, preparing ourselves very adequately. And we should be in a position where we can defend our borders, where we can look after our Northeast. And but at the same time, there is absolutely no other way but then to engage.
No other way but to engage. I don't have time at all. Mr. Pradut Dev Burman, last word from you.
I'm going to talk about the human angle as well. Aggressive Bangladesh in the hands of Pakistan, ISI and China will lead to, we are talking about development, again, disgruntled youth from Northeast will be taken, safe harbors will be created, insurgency will affect Northeast. Again, your development angle will go out of the window. Second thing, if radicalization in Bangladesh takes place, if the minorities are attacked and they all flock over to the Northeast, we are again going to have a human problem of large-scale influx because Bangladesh will not protect its minorities. They will flock over to the Northeast. Again, you will have an internal strife in the Northeast. So, what is our plan B? I am again saying you are only looking at Bangladesh from a trade point of view. Look at it from the human point of view. Shubirda knows what happened in Noakhali, what happened in Kumilla, what happened in Brahmanbari. We all know about the riots. It will again happen if India does not show our strength. And the only language Bangladesh understands is if you try to provoke Indians or make your country a landing ground against India, we know how to adequately respond.
Absolutely.
Response does not mean cowardice. It means preemptive action.
I've completely run out of time, and I know this is an engaging topic. I thank all my panelists, Srirada Datta, Dr. Subir Bhomik, Mr. Pradut Dev Burman, Mr. Bhaskar Jyoti Mahanta. Thank you very much for being on the show, and the viewers for watching the program. Good night and goodbye.